Last week, Bethlehem Senior High returned from their service and learning trip to the Boston area. And it was a really great experience. From the people we met and their stories to learning about the eastern part of our country. One of the partners while we were there was a small Baptist congregation of Haitian descent. The congregation spoke French and English. Its worship service was bilingual and conducted in both of those languages. But here's what I really found interesting. While their Haitian roots were a part of their history and their story, many people would not necessarily identify that way. Some of those that I met have lived in the US their entire lives, or at least the last 3 decades. So I found that interesting because while we were there, I was regularly asked, "Where are you from?" It was obvious that I was not from Boston. My accent gave it away. For example, if I were to say the question or the phrase, "Where did you park your car?" Well, that sounds funny to those in the Boston area. They would say, "Where'd you park your car?" Park your car. So people would hear me talk with my weird Midwestern accent, and I would get the question, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "Minnesota." And I would still say that, but after meeting the people from our partner congregation who were of Haitian descent but didn't necessarily identify as Haitian, I thought more about that question. Where are you from? I've lived the last 16 years or so in Minnesota. Does that make me a Minnesotan? Does that make me from here? I live here. Is that the same thing as being from here? Am I from Nebraska because I was born there? And if I mention to some people that my great or great-great-grandparents came over from Norway and Sweden, they say, "Oh, you're Scandinavian." And I'm like, "No, I've never lived there. I don't carry their culture with me or speak the language." Does having distant relatives in another country mean that I'm from there? Where are you from? How do you answer that question? Where are you from? That's a question of identity and belonging, which are very important for human well-being. So I'm just curious from people who are tuning in today, how many of you have worked on an ancestry tree? Anybody do that? Or how many of you have had your genes sequenced through a company like 23andMe to see what part of the world your DNA comes from? A fair amount of people actually do both of those things. And here's the thing, no one would do any of this stuff if the question, "Where are you from?" didn't matter. If it didn't have some level of importance, if it didn't help you see and understand yourself in a particular way, in an identity-forming kind of way. We judge people based on where they are from. "Oh, you're from the Midwest? City or small town?" "Oh, small town? I'm sorry, how sad for you." "Oh, you're from New York City? That explains it. I understand why you are the way you are now." And that question can even refer to your family. "What's your family name? Whose kid are you? What family do you come from?" "Oh, you're a Howard. That's a good name. I know them. Hardworking people, salt of the earth kind of people. You're from a good family." Go the other way too. "Jesus, where are you from?" "Nazareth? Does anything good come out of Nazareth? Who are your people? Who's your family?" Matthew and Luke, the gospel writers, they set out to answer that important question, "Where are you from?" through a genealogy. A reading from Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 17. Okay, here comes our reading. Bear with me. This is a genealogy, and a genealogy reads like a genealogy, but trust me, we need to hear this today. An account of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerath by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Aram, and Aram the father of Amabab, and Amabab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salom, and Salom the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David, and David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Jerome, and Jerome the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah, and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Salathiel, and Salathiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abud, and Abud the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliud, and Eliud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Mattan, and Mattan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations. If I wanted to discourage someone from reading the biblical story devotionally, I would tell them to spend their time reading genealogies. They are full of names that you cannot pronounce, and they read tediously. But I also have to tell you that there is more to them than you think. Most people don't know that genealogies in the biblical story, especially in the Gospels, are not meant to give an accurate history of a person's family line. That's not what they are concerned about. But you think that they would be, right? Because isn't that the purpose of a genealogy? Well, Jesus' genealogy in Matthew, it doesn't match up well at all with the genealogy found in Luke. And neither genealogy matches up with the ones found in the book of Chronicles. But as I said to you, that's not the point. Matthew's genealogy is theological. It is part of Matthew's story about the nature of God and the good news that Jesus brings. And if you understand that, well, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Jesus is part of God's saving work to bring about the kind of world that God dreams of. Beginning with Abraham, God makes a covenant to be a blessing to all nations. And in each successive generation, God's saving grace comes to live out in the lives of great kings like David and priests like Eleazar, until Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah, comes to be. God's story of salvation, mercy, and forgiveness unfolds over time and throughout the generations. But there's even more to this story. In the ancient world, it was unusual to include women in genealogies. It was not unheard of, but it was unusual. The gospel writer includes 5 women in this genealogy. Of the 5 women, 4 are foreigners. Tamar is the Canaanite wife of Judah's eldest son. Rahab is a prostitute and Gentile from Moab. And according to Jewish law, Moabites were especially excluded from the Israelite community, even after 10 generations. Then there's the wife of Uriah, otherwise known as Bathsheba. She was an Israelite, but her marriage to a Hittite would cause her to be considered a Gentile. And finally, there is Ruth, a Moabite woman. Not only are these women not good Jews of good stock, so to speak, but their stories were somewhat scandalous. The point? God's story of salvation, mercy, and forgiveness unfolds over time and the generations through the most unlikely people you can imagine. Where are you from, Jesus? The nice side of town? The best respectable family line? Not really. While that's the point, it still surprises me because we typically try to hide anything that would make us look less in the eyes of others. But for the gospel writer, the work of God across the generations is inclusive and makes room in the family for those that you would never expect. So, where are you from? Most people consider this a simple, straightforward question about where you live. But this question can also be complex, a loaded question having nothing to do with your physical address. Where are you from is a question of belonging. And plenty of people don't feel that they have a place in this world, that they don't belong because they are not connected and loved. Plenty of people are from places that are toxic and dangerous. Plenty of people believe that their place is superior to all other places and treat others as if that were true. Plenty of people feel shame from where they come from or where they are. So where are you from? I'm not asking where you live. I am asking a deeper question. Where do you belong? What do you embody? How do you connect and function in this world? Your place in this world, does it allow others in? Is it a place of joy? Does it lift you up? Is it beautiful and life-giving? Where are you from? Matthew's genealogy reads like a boring family tree, but it's not that at all. Where am I from? I am from a faith tradition that believes and hopes that God is present in the ongoing progression of human life from generation to generation, working to bring about God's kingdom, a place where mercy, forgiveness, and love lead to flourishing, a place that makes room for the least and uses the gifts of all to make something beautiful in this world. I reside in a world that often resists the inclusive nature of God's kingdom, that is destroying itself by the abuse of the environment, the desire for power and wealth at all costs, a world that often turns a blind eye to the poor and suffering, that operates too often out of fear. That's where I live. But that's not where I'm necessarily from. Where I am from gives me hope that God is constantly working through all of us to put the brokenness of our world back together again, through the most unlikely of people in the most unlikely of ways. This is the good news that we hear today. Thanks be to God for that. Amen. As a way of taking today's message and reflection just a bit deeper and applying it more directly to your life, here is a reflection question to help you go deeper. Where are you from? I'm not asking where you live. Where are you from? Please take a moment and think about that, journal about that, talk with somebody about that. It is an important question that leads to life.